Welcome, Gemini, to the month of June 2018, your month. And you are here, as this is my you are here symbol for positioning it here on planet Earth. You're not out in the middle of the ocean, though. You're somewhere here. I think there's North America right there. Anywho, all right. So the month of June starts out with the moon in your 8th house in Capricorn and conjuncts Pluto, which has also been transiting your 8th house, at 22 hours 7 minutes. And what this can do for you is delve deeply. You can go to the emotional depths and transform something, or somehow maybe ask for other people's resources at the start of the month. And then on June 4th, Jupiter, which has been in your 6th house of health and work, squares the moon when the moon goes into Aquarius, into your 9th house. So now from the 6th house of work to the 9th house of law and higher education, this square gives you the incentive or impetus, the drive to maybe travel overseas, the action and the drive to travel overseas, possibly for your work. And that happens at 10 hours and 55 minutes into that day of June 4th. Then on June 6th, the moon goes into its last quarter into your 10th house of career and public standing, into the sign of Pisces at 15 degrees 60 minutes, into its last quarter there. And then proceeds to trine Venus. Since Venus is in a water sign, Venus has been transiting your 2nd house of money and what you value in the water sign of Cancer, your neighboring sign, Gemini. And if I haven't mentioned, this is for all sun, moon, and rising signs in the 3rd zodiacal sign of Gemini, the twins. And you're ruled by Mercury. So Mercury is in your 1st house along with the sun. Anyhow, this trine, this very harmonious trine, goes from the moon in your 10th house in Pisces, the other water sign, which is, by the way, also mutable like yourself. You're a mutable air sign. And Pisces is the mutable water sign, which means flexible, changeable, dual. There's a lot of duality between the two signs. And what this can do for you in terms of having this harmonious trine is give you the very pleasant energy in loving what you do in your career, and this reflects back into what you value and how your earning power, or what your earning power can do for you at the start of the month. And that's a 120-degree trine. I love trines. Aren't they beautiful? And then on June 9th, the moon goes into your 11th house of friendships and then squares Venus. So now maybe you might have a little bit of tension among friends and money versus money, or what you might value and or not value and learn to come to value, if that makes any sense at all. So there's an emotional connection between how this square affects money versus friendships, or because the 11th house deals with your goals and wishes, this might very well give you the impetus to earn enough to reach those goals and wishes, whatever they might be, from your 11th to your second house. And that happens at the 4 o'clock hour and 5 minutes. And then on excuse me. And then on June 12th, Mercury, your ruling planet, a very mercurial planet at that, which also rules Virgo, leaves your sign on June 12th and enters the watery sign of the watery depths of Cancer. So that's on June 12th. And at which point the moon then will be going into shortly thereafter, going into your 12th house of the subconscious mind and sextiling Venus at 6 o'clock and 54 minutes. So now we have not only how you think, what you think about money, but how you feel and respond favorably with love toward what you value. And this sextile gives you that. And this is I love this too. It's a 60-degree aspect to, and a shorter, of course, aspect. And then on the following day of June 13th, Venus now leaves Cancer and enters your 3rd house of communications into Leo. And now you have the ability to love what you do or say in terms of any kind of maybe publishings or writings, or even love taking short trips, as the 3rd house deals with short distance trips. This deals with siblings. Maybe you might love talking with your siblings at this time. And then on June 13th, the new moon happens when the moon joins along with the sun in your sign, in your 1st house of the health of the self, and body. And so you might want to watch out for your hands and wrist area, because Gemini rules the hands. I know, because I've got Jupiter in Gemini, and I'm always injuring my fingers and fingernails. So you might want to think about, but this gives you the ability to go within. And I have a friend that's Gemini, and he regularly meditates, and so this helps with that on June 13th with the new moon. And then on June 15th, the moon in Cancer opposes Pluto in Capricorn. So from the second house to the eighth house, I believe this is one of our only oppositions for the month of June. And what this can give you is an emotional awareness of your sense of values versus others' values, and how you might respond to those values by thinking them over and giving them more of a giving it more of an awareness, and also asking either for a raise from the boss or some kind of promotion. Then on June 18th, the sun sextiles the moon once the moon goes into your third house of communications, joining along in here with Venus and everything. And so having the sun sextile the moon gives you this very pleasant and even harmonious sense of personhood, identity, and good feelings between how you feel about yourself versus what you're communicating. Then on June 20th, the moon goes into its first quarter phase, into your fourth house of the home, into Virgo. At 29 degrees 4 minutes. And so any kind of first projects, like taking off on first endeavors, like the starts of something, with the energy flow from the new moon, you can now take off on June 20th, because obviously it's building up to the longest day of the year, as the following day now, the sun leaves your sign and enters Cancer. And the sun goes now into your second house of money and what you value on June 21st, as again it is, I guess they would call it the summer equinox. So the longest day of the year, June 21st, that's when the sun leaves Gemini and enters the sign of Cancer. And then on June 22nd, the moon squares Pluto once the moon entered your fifth house of romance, and I'm just knocking the planets around, aren't I? The moon enters your fifth house in Libra, which is very beneficial for those that are very creative. So with this square from the moon, or from Pluto square the moon, from the 5th to the 8th houses, this square gives you the emotional ability to manifest something very transformational, in that maybe you might be able to garner some other person's resources for what you're doing creatively, and as well as just in general give you that little bit of a drive, but there could be tensions in that. Then on June 24th, the moon trines Mercury, your ruling planet again, when the moon goes into your 6th house of health and work, with Scorpio being on this cusp. You now have a very harmonious trine from the moon to your ruling planet now that it's in Cancer. So there's a feeling, an emotionally charged feeling, but in a deep sense, because this is the Scorpio moon placement along with Jupiter here, but this aspect goes from the moon to your ruling planet, so it's an emotionally harmonious ability to ask for that raise for sure, but in a very diplomatic way. And since there's no Mercury retrogrades, that's perfect. As Mercury retrogrades can be pretty difficult for you Geminis. And then on June 26th, the moon, once it goes into your 7th house of relationships in Sagittarius, then squares Neptune in Pisces into your 10th house of career. So now we have a square from the moon in Sagittarius, your opposite sun sign, also a mutable sign. All mutable signs are Sagittarius, Pisces, Gemini, and Virgo. Mutable earth, mutable fire, mutable water, mutable air. And you're a mutable air sign. And with this square from the moon to Neptune, you now have the ability to ask for or emotionally respond to perhaps your business associates within your career. But just be mindful that this can bring on tensions with the ego shifting a little bit to, in other words, be honest. Don't hide under that coral reef with this moon square Neptune here. Be direct without being too direct, if that makes sense, with this square. And that's before the moon then comes full circle back into Capricorn, into your 8th house, and then becomes, see, this is why I said that, because that's a very strong energy, and as the build up to the full moon happens, there can be quite a bit of anger or frustration. And all anger is fear. And when you come from fear, you can't grow as well because it restricts. I love this saying that a friend of mine, a longtime friend of mine, read to me over the phone. Fear suffocates, Love liberates. So when you have this full moon now coming full circle into your 8th house, you now have the ability to, oh, and that happens at 6 degrees 28 minutes. You now have an even greater awareness with your ruling planet, with this full moon happening between both 2nd and 8th houses. Finally, the moon wanes into your 9th house of higher education and conjuncts. Oh, well, it was conjuncting Pluto. Excuse me, pardon me. I should have mentioned that there was a conjunction to Pluto. I got sidetracked with that lovely saying. I love that saying. Fear suffocates, love liberates. Okay, so there was a conjunction on June 29th between the moon and Pluto. And that all... Sorry, I just tapped my tripod. And what that can do is give you that much more of an ability of an emotionally charged depth to your understanding of other people's values or asking for others as resources. And now with that, Gemini, I want to thank you for watching. Feel free to like, giving it a thumbs up, comment down below, or subscribe. And have a wonderful summer month of June. This month is fantastic for all of us. And I'll see you next month.